everybody. This is Terrell Wayne, a.k.a. Q, and you're listening to Bootleg Like Jazz. In the studio, we got the current Poet Laureate of Houston, Texas, Leslie Contreras Schwartz. Did I say it right?
You said it fine.
Awesome. Like I said, she's the fourth Houston Poet Laureate, serving from 2019 to 2021. She is a multi-genre writer whose book, Who Speaks For Us Here, is scheduled for spring 2020 publication with Skull and Wind Press. And she let me read a little bit of it. I like it. She told me it's confidential, but yeah, it's cool. Her work has recently appeared or is forthcoming in Gulf Coast Anomaly, the Missouri Review, the Collagist, PANK, Iowa Review, Verse Daily, and the anthology Xicanx. Xicanx. 21 Mexican-American writers of the 21st century, University of Arizona 2022, among others. She is also the author of Nightbloom Cenote.
Yes,
yeah,
you got it.
And then I got me a copy of Fuego. Can you please autograph this for me?
Of course.
All right, awesome.
So should I sign it Q or Terrell?
Yeah, go ahead. No, Q. No.
Okay.
Q. Not my government name.
Your government name? All right.
So thank you for coming on Bootleg Like Jazz, right? We also interviewed Deborah Deep Mouton, who was the Poet Laureate right before you. How does it feel being the Poet Laureate?
I'm excited.
Thank you.
I think I was already looking for...
Continue to read books, ladies and gentlemen.
I was already looking for an opportunity to do this kind of community work, so it's a great opportunity, and I'm glad and grateful.
What went through your mind when you heard that you were going to be the next Poet Laureate? What went through your mind?
I thought maybe it was a mistake. They're going to say, we tallied up the scores incorrectly or something. But then I was really happy and honored, excited. Mayor Turner is from my area of town where I grew up.
Okay. Acres Home?
Yeah. So,
Me too.
Yeah. Well, I went to Eisenhower, which is right on Aldine or Antoine.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be picked by another Houstonian who's familiar with the same area, and I think I might be the first native Houstonian who's the Poet Laureate.
What about Deep? Where was she from?
Deep did not. She's from LA, I think.
Okay.
She didn't grow up here. She grew up somewhere else. I mean, she considers herself a Houstonian.
I see what you're saying.
Not sure about Gwen.
Okay. And then there was one other person before.
Robin Davidson.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not sure, so I have to check my facts.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up off of Antoine, Westmont, Houston.
Oh, yeah.
But because of zoning, I went to KF.
Okay.
But I swear to you, I could walk and get to Ike faster than being on the bus and getting to KF. It's the most ridiculous thing about Houston school zoning laws. It's a bunch of bullshit, I'll say.
So we actually used to live in the Greenspoint area when I was younger. But so we were closer to, I think, Klein something Forest.
Yeah.
But my older brother and sister were bused to Eisenhower.
Or at least Westfield.
I mean,
Westfield is closer to Greenspoint, too.
Their high school, or the high school that we were closest to, was literally, I don't know, a mile away.
Interesting.
But they were bused all the way to Ike.
Yeah, that's stupid to me.
But we moved in closer by the time I went there. We were like across the street.
That's so stupid to me. Anyways. But we're not here to talk about Houston school zoning, but those things need to change, though. So what do you hope to accomplish, as a Poet Laureate? Like, how do you intend to use, the platform, the opportunity? What are some of the things you're trying to do, wanting to do?
I think when I started out, I really wanted to, work in every community and I'm going to be here and I'm going to be here. I'm going to be in the schools and I'm going to be in homeless shelters for young people. And I'm going to, I had to focus, to try to think realistically, okay, I have 2 years. Where can I be most helpful, make the best use of my time? So the main goal is still not necessarily to bring poetry, because that's like me saying I'm the authority of poetry. Poetry is just natural to us as human beings. Like, we express it in different ways, music or, song or dance. It's more of a spirit, like our spirit trying to speak a language, however that comes out.
Do you think being a mother is artful?
Oh, yes. I mean, even people that can't read that well, even people that can't write that well, I think there are different forms of art making. And so my goal when I say I'm not here as some type of authority to bring poetry, my goal is to sit with people in different communities and show them how they're already poets. So some of the first programs I'll be working with is the health department. The health department goes into schools, elementary, middle, high schools, to work with students that have a lot of discipline problems. So they're trying to get them on track. They're trying to teach them emotional, behavioral skills, give them mentors, like student mentors, to try to get them on track to find some balance or stability, because there's a multitude of issues that they're dealing with. So I'll come in with like the creative component. And again, I'm not coming there to, be an authority on anything, but I'm just going to bring each community. My goal is to bring in work from within that community of living poets and artists. So if I'm working at the Montrose Center with the LGBT youth, I bring only trans, only queer poets, only, if I work in a community with people of color, I only bring living poets, because that's very important. I know when I grew up, we read, I appreciated it, but in English class, we read stuff that I thought was really powerful. But if it was from my own community, it would have made such a difference.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I identify. I agree with you. Tony Diaz, Nuestra Palabra, representation matters.
It does. And I think the content, too, like you want to hear somebody talk about stories that you're familiar with. And if you see, this high art, or what people consider high art, or art forms that are considered elitist, or only certain people are talking about their experiences, like you don't think it's for you. Like you don't think,
because you don't see yourself there.
Like that's not for me. But I really want people to see that they're already doing the work of poets in different ways. One of my idols is Joy Harjo, the current U.S. Poet Laureate. She is a Native poet, and she says the same thing. People aren't born poets. We're all poets. We don't study poetry. We study living poetry. We study the language that we already have innate in ourselves, and we just express it.
Right.
And that's really what I want to emphasize. Like, I'm not some special person coming in telling people, like, you can write this and here's how you do it. I'm just a facilitator, somebody sitting with other people who might need to share their stories or make some art. And there's not enough spaces. There's never enough spaces to make art and to have people listen or witness your art. What
for the people who are watching and the people who are listening, what are some ways they can get involved, support you, or help out?
One of the components of my program is that anybody who participates in a workshop or even who sends me in some of their work, I'm going to take lines. I can't use everybody's, but I can put them on the library website, and I'm going to have a poster campaign with work from people all around Houston, displayed beautifully with background art, but just with those lines because I really want to emphasize this idea that, every person has poetry. So if you want to participate, you can send me your work. You can find me on Facebook, and you can...
where can people find you online?
So you can find me on Facebook, Houston Poet Laureate. That's probably the easiest way to find me. And all the information is there. And you'll see upcoming events, upcoming workshops. And there's a lot of public workshops coming up.
How did you fall in love with poetry? What was that moment, that first poem, that experience? How did you fall in love with poetry, writing, and things like that?
So, believe it or not, I was very shy. Not just shy, but like embarrassing.
No, I don't believe you.
Like, I can't talk to anybody without stuttering, kind of shy.
Gotcha.
I was also very nerdy. And just quiet. And I've been like that my whole life. But poetry allowed me to feel empowered because I'm not much of a small talker, if you haven't noticed.
You like depth.
Yeah. So it gave me space to talk about things that no one ever talked about. I attended Shotwell at middle school.
Yeah, what? That's my backyard. Antoine, right there by the Beltway.
So,
small world.
Yes, I Shotwell, and that transition from childhood into straight up adolescence, teenhood, but not the kind of adolescence you would find in like River Oaks or Westview.
Right.
Different.
For sure.
Very different kind of adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
And when I looked at the TV and when I read the news or when I met people outside of that neighborhood, I didn't understand why there was such a difference. I didn't understand why I felt isolated and why I felt the isolation from my peers, and I felt like there was something that wasn't talked about or something that I couldn't identify. And that's when I came into poetry. I remember, Emily Dickinson, that was what I had access to. I don't remember reading Lucille Clifton or being exposed to anything like Sandra Cisneros. I had standard type of old school canon poetry given to me in class. But I remember reading a poem she has this poem about seeing her own death and that there's a fly coming in and she's like witnessing herself and the fly going by. And
fascinating.
And not seeing, there's a line like, I did not see to see, like she could not see something that was so apparent, and that death, she was basically watching herself. And I thought, isn't that interesting? She's using everyday language, like simple words, nothing that I had to look up, nothing that made me feel unintelligent, but just everyday words to say something very difficult. Because you can say, I'm lonely. You can say, I'm afraid of dying. You can say, I feel misunderstood. But to specify what kind of loneliness, like I'm a Mexican-American 12-year-old who is not an immigrant, but who's not white, and I don't look like the typical American stereotype, and I'm in this school where the teachers hate us, like on and on and on, like specific type of loneliness. And I just latched onto that, and in a lot of ways it helped me survive.
Do you only write poetry?
No, I write all kinds.
So I like to ask people this question: how is the use of words different, through the different mediums for you?
I think everyone has their own style. It's just like the way we talk. I would say that even my stories are pretty poetic, and that just means I play with language. I like to be playful and play with grammar and play with like how you use words, so that it sounds weird. Like when you hear me read it, it sounds like strange. And that's like my thing, because I just like doing that. I like taking something that we say every day and trying to mess it up and, make us more on our toes and think about the words that we use.
You ready to read something now?
Sure. I just want to say I'm so happy to be here. I am grateful for the open eagerness.
No.
And I'm honored.
Bootleg Like Jazz thanks you. Fourth Poet Laureate. This is what we do. Hey, listen, to anybody out there in the city of Houston, we can go and, let's go and sign this contract now. All the Poet Laureates got to come through Bootleg Like Jazz.
Please.
Like, hey, we can sign that up. What's up? Who do I need to talk to? Bootleg Like Jazz, we want people. If you're an artist, rapper, whatever, come on, you got to read, you got to perform. I think there's only one person who got away with an interview and I didn't have them perform. I can't remember who, but everybody
Maybe they
does.
just spoke so well.
Maybe so. Oh, I know it was. It was Blazing Black, actually. But they did a little something.
Okay.
But check out Blazing Black, their interview, their show. You'll love them. But this is about Leslie Contreras Schwartz, the fourth Poet Laureate here in the city of Houston, Texas. She's finna read something here on Bootleg Like Jazz. What you got for us?
All right. So this book that you mentioned that's coming out, Who Speaks for Us Here, it's all voices, different voices from women and girls in trapped situations, sex workers, if they're trafficked. But it's not emphasizing their, being imprisoned or a condition of being trapped. Even though that's the reality, it's more about their voice and like their inner core keeping them alive. Like that, even in this horrific situation, how do they keep going? And a lot of it has to be about kinship. They're living for the other person that they met in the same situation. They're living for, the people that cared about them that they still live on inside them. So, and some of the poems are also in the voices of women with mental illness. So I'll start with one of those. That poem is the title poem, Who Speaks for Us Here? And there's sections, so I'll read each section. 1, we've all cracked in our own ways, are expected to add to this circle time story our trace of a hairline split that turn rift, then cut, split into body-sized whole. Everybody here with a last-ditch story that locked us together, shuffling from room to room, both cold, heads nodding from meds that could drown a horse half living. What's your story, V? Nadia juts her sharp chin to me. Was that a dare? I've got nothing to match her fable of the sharp little pill, the hard lump of bread those violent invaders forced down her throat, into her holy stomach, her empty sanctuary. She lifts a hand, clawed a face splendid as a miniature plant in pale down feathered lanugo flourishing on the hard shoot of her arm. How do I say that we are hungry down here from the bottom of my throat, the lowest hung branch of myself? 2, I took the pill that set every sound to fade and barely there, but the song still floats to me as if the entire choir plays in my underwater's sub-terrestrial hymn, dark cave canticle. But I have nowhere to point, nor any direction to give, no language. Even the man who can't stop fucking every woman, child, and man points one way or another, a beast incarnate between his legs. Look, I've an assembly of people, a mindscape of a sun-darkened girl on the beach, aggressive motion, snapshot of childhood, wide holler. Can I just make a comment? So this is in the voice of someone who is in a mental hospital. And she's talking about all the voices that she hears and the people that she meets. And it gets confusing because they are both realities to her. Okay, so this is 3. The librarian, meticulous recorder of his own dark finding, each head slammed into the wall, categorized and set to forever. He sees and remembers all for me. The woman who fights, goes about with butcher knife, baroque in blood and rags. The girl, mute and comatose, frozen animal made of fear and sick grief. The lady hums, nursing and feeding, tiny sips of water from a straw to each of them. All of them also humming their bright braided song into my throat. I've been learning to sing or to hum a little with them, but the melody keeps escaping. How did you find yourself here? The interventionist counselor asked, as she asked the other patients. A man with gauze on his neck, heavy with blood, the girl in long sleeves pulled down across her fingers, fresh cuts poking out from her neckline. My roommate, an older lady retching into a trash bin, that rank vodka smell she carries her with her like sadness from room to room. I was learning to sing, I hear myself saying. I was just learning to sing and I couldn't keep up the melody. But the circle wants a story straight line to this mental hospital, to this room that smells of Clorox and old blood. You are supposed to say, I wanted to die, so A, then B, and now C, and all of D. 4. I had just begun to want to live. A. I let them speak. A life could be sung louder, a wide open mouth. On same, and death. B. Instead, hummingbird life, full belly dirge, beak bent to nectar, neck bent to loosen sap. I open my mouth, warble, choral. I hold up my wrist, C. My people start chanting this aria, terrible and beautiful, raggedy, inner bellow and hiss, cut up sound, bells of self, a sieve or a map to a place no one wanted to know. D. 5. A song that everyone wanted to stop. Everyone, everything but me. Here on my wrist. Isn't that how we talk here? Show them the wounds we don't remember making. The bottom half of an inning when everyone is cheering wildly, all the hollering the crowd can muster, and they don't remember why or who it is that's running full steam to home.
This is Leslie Contreras Schwartz. You're listening to Bootleg Like Jazz, Terrell Wayne, aka Q, your host. So wow, that was moving. I wanted to know why who speaks for us here. You know, what's the meaning behind that title?
This is in the voice of a woman with, it used to be called multiple personality disorder. Now it is called dissociative disorder.
Gotcha.
And I make it no secret that I struggle with mental illness, that I live and survive with mental illness. So I'm familiar in particular with this syndrome, this disorder. And it's not like what people think. You know, a lot of people have notions of mental illness, like they think of what they think of on TV, like what they've seen in shows, like the most extreme, somebody that switches on and off between different personalities. It's not so clear cut and it's not so black and white. You know, we all, especially within different communities, especially communities of color, we experience mental illness and define it in different ways. We don't use the same language to describe it. So I know in my community, a lot of it is based on spirit, it's described differently. It's not like the standard ways of talking about mental illness. It usually has to do with spirituality and carrying stuff inside. So that's what this poem is based on a woman who's struggling with all these voices that appeared from trauma, from things that happened to her. And, we're human, and so we build all these responses to things that have happened to us that appear to some people abnormal, but are actually things that help us live. So,
yeah, for the listeners and viewers, what would you want them to know about?
I would want people to know, it's like I tell my children that not like I'm some spiritual authority, but no matter how you are, no matter how you react, no matter how you behave, you're a child of God, and you are made exactly the way you were on purpose. Exactly. Even with your flaws, even, the way people describe you, if it's with, terms that are mean or cruel because, you act crazy or you're too this or you're too that. But I am a spiritual person, and I think that we are made with a purpose, and we're made exactly the way we're supposed to be.
Amen. Hallelujah. So could you talk about how you process, some of your trauma or things like that? How you deal with your, mental health?
I had, I love my family. I love my community. But, there weren't unless you had a lot of family support, and your family was already starting to progress, moving up socioeconomically, like you had very limited options. So I have friends from high school who have lives very differently than mine. And a lot of times I'll look at my life and there's like one decision or two decisions where everything could look very different. And I'm always aware of that parallel life, things that people would not consider that I could have been like. But that's the reality for most people. If you don't happen to have parents with the opportunity to make a certain amount of money and are always struggling, or if there's a lot of violence in your family. Not that I'm saying that extra money doesn't prevent that. But I think there's just so many limited options. And I always struggle with that sense of being trapped. Like, I got to get out of here because I see these different places where people are going, and I will die. I will basically die if I do that. Because I could see myself going there. I could see how easy that slope was to get into that and become someone that it would be really hard to reverse. So that's why I got into writing. But I had to find a way to stop writing this stuff that was like just sad and heavy, and allowed me to try to work through that. Even when I brought myself out of where I felt trapped, inside I still felt trapped. Like I carried the sense of being trapped. And so my writing has helped me, just like a lot of art makers, creatives, my art helped me to find a way out of that. Like, I'm going to make songs. I'm going to make things that people can read or hear and feel connected to. And then so I'm not carrying all this.
I recently read, I'm reading this book called The Superior Man, The Way of the Superior Man. Nipsey Hussle suggested it on The Breakfast Club, and I started reading it. It's really cool. and it said in there, how did it say? It says, do something every day that your father or, a parent would not want you to do. And that seems like kind of what you're saying is kind of, doing those things that you love to do that wake you up, wake your soul up, and that helps you move forward.
Yes.
Seems like the best way to handle mental health issues.
Yes. And I think, I don't know, at least in my community and my background, a lot of it has to do with gender. If you're male and you act a certain way, aggressive or whatever, you're just being a man. Like, you're acting manly. If you're a girl, then you're crazy. You're being too aggressive. And I felt trapped by all that. I felt trapped by being who I was, being very sensitive, like pretty much having my feelers out all the time. And being vulnerable, really, to like all the girls that were around me. How easy it would have been for me to be a teen mother.
Yeah.
And to slide into whatever occupation would make the most money, basically. So I think it is why I based this book on sex work and being trafficked. I did a lot of research about Houston in particular and the girls and women that are trafficked here, since we're a hub. I did advocacy work before the Super Bowl and learned a lot that was disturbing. What disturbed me the most, besides that 90% of the massage parlors you see are brothels, was that I met people from my neighborhood, adults. And here's the thing about when a woman or girl are trafficked. They don't consider themselves victims. If you talk to them, they'll say, I'm a sex worker. They use different terms, but that's how I make my money. Because to say I was taken advantage of, I was put in this situation, you just can't live with that. You're basically saying, I became completely overpowered by somebody.
And you let it happen.
And
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so it takes a lot of work for people to say that. And so I met a lot of people, and some of the women I met, they were like, oh yeah, I grew up in that area, and let me tell you how it happened. Most of it happens because you have a boyfriend, you have a father, you have a cousin, female or male. They notice you need money, and they say, okay, you start by sleeping with my friend. I'll give you $100. And then you're like, hey, I need this money. And so it just keeps going, and then the violence comes in, then the drugs come in. And then you can't get another job. You can't reestablish your life. So when I learned that, and I learned that these were other people from my neighborhood, it was a wake-up call. I was like, I am so lucky. And a lot of it is just chance. I know people say, oh, you have to give yourself credit. No, a lot of it is just chance, because the people that have followed that other path, some of it, those people are no different than me. They might have had less support.
Mm-hmm. Do you have another piece you can read, like a quick piece?
I can.
All right,
yes.
So this is Leslie Contreras Schwartz. You listen to Bootleg Like Jazz. I had another question I wanted to get out.
Okay. I know, I'm long-winded.
Real quick, could you talk about what makes poetry unique for you?
I think poetry is unique, just like music, rapping, painting, because it just gives us a tool to express how we feel about how we live, what we experience in ways that we can't say in everyday conversation.
All right. This is Terrell Wayne, a.k.a. Q. You listen to Bootleg Like Jazz. We have the current poet laureate of Houston, Texas, Leslie Contreras Schwartz in the studio. She's going to read another piece for us.
Okay.
Don't forget, follow, like, subscribe. Where can people find you? Where your book's at?
So you can find me on the Facebook page for the Houston Poet Laureate.
I bought this at Casa Ramirez here in Houston. I got the last copy. Apparently, she told me.
Brazos still has my books, but you can find them online on Amazon. And then I'll have a book out in March.
Gotcha.
So this is a new poem.
Pre-order it, right? They can pre-order that?
You can pre-order it online. You can go to my website, Leslie C. Schwartz.
How do you spell Schwartz?
SCHWARTZ.
Yeah, you got to spell that one.
There's all kinds of different versions. So I'm going to read this last poem. And this poem is dedicated to the people who were killed in the recent El Paso and Dayton shootings. And it's called Black Dove. Paloma Negra is a song. In the down of the pillow, the corner crease of bedsheet, clean dish, hot plate holding supper, door held open, the turned up and uprighted, mopped floor, every empty trash bin, gleam and afterglow, the fruit, the bread, the tree groom, its peaceful extend, the child guided through, parking lot, the child, not ours, the parking lot itself, walked upon. Child guard, child fed, child grown, raised, not miracle, no. Through hands held together, hands holding out, the miracle of hands and papers, pens, pencils, a glass of a plate of cash into the hand, a few dollars for thirsty, for hungry, for papers. Crumbs fallen and swept away under desk and bins, plastic covered nightstand, rug, potholes unpotted, flattened, ditches, it's dug, concrete, it's poor, traffic this way, tomorrow you pay please. Hands, ours, everywhere. The parents after children of hands, evergreen trim, grass handling, someone else's laundry. Color of serving, washing, picking up, picking, carrying, pulling, loading, cuidando los niños, cuidando lawn, groceries, others 9 to 5, others sleep, others extra. Call her in the morning, my cleaning lady. My man is good. Who does yours? Come back tomorrow. You come next day. Black dove in the foundation. The beams like hands winging. The shingles, accordion, guitarron. It's tunarun, ting, ting. In the wood grain. The house build up hurricane after Hulk in the neighborhood of shoes worn once, of clothes, toys, discarded like blinking, and daytime stupor sleepwalking past hands in the evergreen trim, grassing the other else's laundry. Hands blooming with sunrash, cut, calloused, pop back in, blackened fingernails, greening the grow for safe and safe and safe. Para mirar tus ojos, our children, our father, our mother. Hear Paloma Negra in the rafters, its free gift of wings. Barum paloma, paloma negra. Ya me cansó de llorar y no amanece in your attic. I'm tired of crying with no hope in your attic. It's clink in kitchen sink. The tengo miedo de buscarte y de encontrarte. I'm afraid to look for you and find you. The your eyes will die without seeing us. House settle and echo of quiero ser libre, vivir mi vida con quien quiera. I want to be free to live my life with who I want. You understand? Do you understand this language? I want to be free and I am afraid to go look for my life. Quiero ser libre y me estoy muriendo por irlo a buscar mi vida. Paloma Negra, ¿dónde ararás? Where are you? Are you listening? Dios, dame fuerzas. Me estoy muriendo. In your eyes will die without seeing ours.
That was Leslie Contreras Schwartz. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening and watching Bootleg Like Jazz. I'm your host, Terrell Wayne, a.k.a. Q. Real quick, where can people find you again?
You can find me on my website, Leslie C. as in Contreras Schwartz, SCHWARTZ. I have to spell it out. There's all kinds of versions. Or on Facebook, Houston Poet Laureate. And send me your work. I want people to send me their work.
Shout out and thank you, Tony Diaz, Nuestra Palabra, Nibu, Marlon, Letty, KPFT for the opportunity. Don, I volunteer. Check out Nuestra Palabra Tuesday, 6 to 7 here if you're in Houston, 90.1, or go to kpft.org and check them out. Latino writers having their say. Any last words? I mean, like last words you have?
Thank you. I'm honored.
No problem.
Thank you.
Honor's ours. All right. Don't forget, like, subscribe, follow. We out. Bye.